The speakers crackled to life, and I heard my own melody, the one I'd hummed into my phone at 3 a.m. 6 months ago, filling the concert hall. But it wasn't my voice singing it. It was his. I stood in the wings of a Staples Center, clutching my backstage pass, so tightly the laminated edge cut into my palm, watching my cousin Marcus perform my song to 20,000 screaming fans. The song I'd played for him in my tiny apartment, the one I'd asked him to listen to because I trusted him, because he was family, because I thought he'd understand what it meant to finally create something that mattered. This one's called Echoes of Tomorrow, Marcus said into the microphone, his voice smooth and confident. I wrote it on a night when I couldn't sleep, when the future felt both terrifying and beautiful. The crowd roared. I felt my stomach twist, ball rising in my throat. But I didn't move, didn't scream, didn't storm onto that stage and rip the microphone from his hands like every cell in my body was demanding I do. Instead, I smiled. I smiled because 3 months ago, I discovered what he'd done. 3 months ago, I'd found the emails between Marcus and his label, discussing his new single, my chord progression, my lyrics, my heartbeat transformed into sound waves. 3 months ago, I'd stood in my apartment, phone shaking in my hands, and made a choice. I chose not to confront him immediately, not to call lawyers, or blast him on social media, or beg for credit I deserved. I chose something better, something that would hurt more and last longer, something that would make him wish he'd never heard my name, let alone stolen my work. I chose to let him think he'd won. If they steal your voice, I whispered to myself, watching Marcus bask in applause that should have been mine. Make sure they choke on it. My manager, Keisha, found me in the wings after Marcus's set ended. She was a black woman in her 40s with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a protective instinct that had saved me more times than I could count. You okay, Jordan? She asked quietly, studying my face. Perfect, I said, and my voice didn't even shake. Everything's going exactly according to plan. She raised an eyebrow. Plan? What plan? You'll see, I said, turning away from the stage where roadies were breaking down Marcus's equipment. Trust me, Keisha. You'll see very soon. That was 4 months ago, the concert where I'd watched Marcus steal my thunder and smiled through it. Now it was February, and the Grammy nominations had just been announced. Marcus's album, featuring Echoes of Tomorrow as the lead single, had been nominated for Album of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best New Artist. The music industry was calling him a genius, a prodigy, the next big thing. And I was still playing coffee shops and open mics, still the struggling artist that people pitied, still the cousin that everyone compared unfavorably to Marcus's sudden success. But what they didn't know, what Marcus didn't know, was that I'd been busy too. Very busy. 6 months earlier, before everything changed, I'd been exactly what I looked like, a 28-year-old session musician scraping by in Los Angeles, living off ramen and hope, convinced that my big break was always just around the next corner. I'd grown up in Detroit with Marcus. Our mothers were sisters, and we'd been close as kids, sharing piano lessons, forming terrible garage bands, dreaming about making it big together. When I'd moved to LA 5 years ago, Marcus had already been here for 2, trying to break into the industry as a producer. We'd stayed close, or at least I thought we had. We'd meet for cheap tacos and expensive dreams, trading stories about near misses and bad auditions. He'd let me sleep on his couch when my roommate's situation fell apart. I'd loaned him money when his equipment got stolen. That's what family did, I'd thought. We had each other's backs. The night I played him Echoes of Tomorrow had been ordinary. I'd been over at his apartment in Silver Lake, sitting on his worn leather couch, my guitar across my lap. I'd been working on the song for weeks, and it had finally clicked into place the night before. I want you to hear something, I'd said, my fingers finding the opening chords. I think this might be the one, Marcus. The song that changes everything. He'd looked up from his laptop, where he'd been scrolling through producer forums. Yeah, let's hear it. So I played it. All of it. Every verse, every bridge, every note that I'd poured my heart into. I'd sung about the feeling of standing on the edge of something new, terrified and exhilarated all at once, about the echo of who you used to be meeting the person you're becoming, about tomorrow arriving like a stranger you've been waiting your whole life to meet. When I'd finished, the last chord still hanging in the air between us. Marcus had been quiet for a long moment. "That's incredible, Jordan," he'd said finally. "Like, really incredible. That's hit material." "You think so?" I'd felt hope bloom in my chest, warm and painful. "I know so." He'd stood up, excited now. "You should record a demo. I can help you. Use my equipment here, get it polished. This could be your breakthrough." "Really? You do that?" "Of course. We're family." He'd grinned, pulling me into a hug. "We look out for each other, right?" "Right," I'd agreed, hugging him back. "Always." I'd left his apartment that night feeling lighter than I had in months. I texted him the voice memo of the song, along with a rough, lead sheet I'd scribbled out. For when we record, I'd written, "Thanks for believing in me." He'd responded with a thumbs-up emoji. That was April. By June, I'd heard through the grapevine that Marcus had signed a major label deal. By July, he was in the studio recording his debut album. And by August, when his first single dropped, I'd been sitting in my car outside a grocery store, listening to the radio when I'd heard it. My song, my melody, my lyrics, slightly changed. Rearranged, but unmistakably mine. Sung by Marcus's voice, produced with his label's resources, presented to the world as his creation. I'd sat there in that parking lot for 20 minutes, engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what I was hearing. At first, I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was just similar. Maybe I was being paranoid or egotistical. But when I'd gotten home and pulled up the single on Spotify, there it was, Echoes of Tomorrow by Marcus Wright. Written by Marcus Wright. Produced by Marcus Wright and James Patterson. Published by Apex Music Group. My name appeared nowhere. Not in the credits, not in the acknowledgments. Nowhere. I called him immediately, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. "Marcus, I just heard your single." "Oh yeah, what do you think? Pretty sick, right?" "It's my song." My voice had been steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. "That's Echoes of Tomorrow. The song I played you in April." "My song." There'd been a pause. Then, "Jordan, come on. I know you played me something similar. But this is different. I've been working on this concept for months. You told me in April that it was incredible. That it was hit material. Those were your exact words. Look, sometimes writers come up with similar ideas. It happens all the time in music. Great minds think alike, you know. Marcus, it's the same chord progression. The same bridge melody. The same lyrical concept. Don't gaslight me. I'm not gaslighting you, Jordan. I'm telling you the truth. Yes, your song might have inspired some elements, but this is my creation. I developed it, I refined it. I made it what it is. You stole it. The words had felt like stones in my mouth. I didn't steal anything. His voice had turned cold, defensive. And honestly, Jordan, even if there are similarities, what are you going to do about it? You don't have the resources to fight me on this. You don't have a label. You don't have lawyers. You don't have proof. It's your word against mine, and I'm the one with the recording contract. You're my cousin. We're supposed to be family. Exactly. Which is why you should be happy for me instead of trying to tear me down. This is my moment, Jordan. Don't ruin it with jealousy. He'd hung up before I could respond. I'd sat there in my apartment, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone and feeling something inside me crystallize from hurt into something harder. Sharper. He was right about one thing. I didn't have the resources to fight him conventionally. I couldn't afford the kind of lawyers who could go up against a major label. I couldn't prove I'd written the song first. I had a voice memo on my phone, but that wasn't copyrighted, wasn't registered, wasn't legally protected. But Marcus was wrong about something crucial. He'd underestimated me. He'd thought I was just a struggling artist who'd roll over and accept being stolen from. He thought family meant I'd protect him even when he hurt me. He thought he could take my voice and I'd stay silent. He didn't know that I'd spent the last 5 years in LA not just playing music, but learning the industry. Learning contracts and copyrights. Learning how songs were published and protected. Learning exactly how artists got screwed and exactly how to avoid it. And more importantly, he didn't know that I'd already copyrighted Echoes of Tomorrow 2 weeks before I'd played it for him. I'd copyrighted the song on a whim honestly. My friend Casey, A session guitarist I'd met at a studio gig had mentioned over drinks one night that she copyrighted everything she wrote before showing it to anyone. Even rough drafts. I'd asked, especially rough drafts. In this industry, theft is more common than talent. You think people won't steal from you because you're friends, because you're starting out, because it's not that good yet. But they will. And when they do, you need proof that it was yours first. Isn't that paranoid? It's practical. She pulled up the U.S. Copyright Office website on her phone. See, you can do it online. $35. Takes 10 minutes. Small price for protecting your work. So that night, slightly drunk and feeling productive, I'd copyrighted 3 songs I'd been working on, including Echoes of Tomorrow. I'd uploaded the voice memo, filled out the forms, paid the fee. Then I'd promptly forgotten about it, because who actually expects their cousin to steal from them? But when Marcus had released his single, that copyright registration became my weapon. I hadn't told him I had it. I hadn't threatened legal action or demanded credit. Instead, I'd done something smarter. I'd started documenting everything. I'd saved every text message, every email, every social media interaction between us. I downloaded his single and run it through audio analysis software, documenting every similarity to my original recording. I compiled timestamps showing when I'd created my version versus when he'd supposedly created his. I built a case, quietly, carefully. While he'd been doing interviews about his creative process and his artistic vision, I'd been constructing the evidence that would destroy him. But I'd needed more than just proof of theft. I'd needed strategy. I'd needed to understand how to use what I had to maximum effect. So I'd reached out to Casey, who'd connected me with an entertainment lawyer named Veronica Chun. Veronica was a specialist in music copyright cases, and she'd listened to my story with increasing interest. You have everything, she'd asked after I'd finished explaining. The original copyright registration. The voice memo you sent him, the complete paper trail, everything. And he signed with Apex. They're big. They'll fight hard to protect their investment in him. I know. That's why I need to be smart about this. Veronica had leaned back in her chair, studying me. What do you want, Jordan? Money. Credit. Both. Justice, I'd said simply. I want everyone to know what he did. I want it to cost him everything it's given him. That's not how these cases usually go. Most copyright disputes settle quietly. You'd likely get a settlement payment. Maybe songwriting credit going forward, but it wouldn't be public. It wouldn't ruin him. Then I don't want to settle. Going to trial is expensive, risky, and time-consuming. Even with a solid case like yours, there are no guarantees. I'm not going to trial. Not yet. I'd pulled out my phone and showed her the timeline I'd been building. I'm going to wait. Wait for what? For him to get as big as possible. For that song to become as successful as possible. For him to build his entire career on my foundation. I'd met her eyes. And then I'm going to take it all away. Veronica had smiled slowly. That's brilliant. And cruel. He stole my song. He looked me in the eye and lied about it. He used our family relationship as a shield. I'd felt my jaw tighten. Cruelty is what he deserves. So we'd waited. We'd watched as Echoes of Tomorrow climbed the charts. As Marcus did late-night TV performances and magazine interviews. As his album went platinum and his tour sold out. As he was nominated for Grammys. And the whole time, I kept playing coffee shops. Kept taking session work. Kept being the struggling artist everyone pitied while my stolen song made Marcus a star. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Every time I saw his face on a billboard or heard my melody on the radio. Every time someone asked me if I was related to that Marcus, right? I'd had to swallow my rage and smile and say, yeah, we're cousins. I'm so proud of him. But I'd done it. Because I'd understood something Marcus didn't. Timing was everything. If I'd exposed him right away, when he was just starting out, he would have been a nobody who stole from another nobody. The story would have gotten buried, settled quietly, forgotten quickly. But if I waited until he was at the peak of his success, until he built his entire public image on a lie, until millions of people had connected with his song and his story, then taking him down wouldn't just be personal vindication. It would be a spectacle. It would be a cautionary tale. It would be exactly the kind of public reckoning that the music industry rarely saw. So I'd waited and planned and suffered in silence. Until the Grammys. The Grammy nominations had changed everything. Suddenly, Marcus wasn't just a successful artist, he was a phenom. Music critics were writing think pieces about Echoes of Tomorrow and its cultural impact. It had become an anthem for Generation Z. A song about hope and change that resonated in uncertain times. And I'd watched it all from the sidelines, my heart breaking and hardening in equal measure. Keisha had found me in my apartment the day after the nominations were announced, let herself in with the spare key I'd given her, and found me sitting on my couch, staring at my guitar. "Talk to me," she'd said, sitting down beside me. "About what?" "About whatever you're planning. Because I know you. Jordan. You don't just let things go." I told her everything then. About the theft, about the copyright, about the months of waiting and watching. About Veronica and the case we'd been building. About my plan to wait until after the Grammys to go public. After the Grammys, Keisha had repeated, "Jordan, that's risky. If he wins, when he wins," I'd corrected. "He's going to win. The album's too big, too loved. He's going to win. And he's going to make an acceptance speech about his artistic journey and his creative vision. He's going to stand on that stage and thank everyone who believed in him. And then I'm going to show the world exactly who he really is." Keisha had been quiet for a long moment. "Then, you need to perform before you break the story." "What?" "Think about it. When this comes out, you're going to be everywhere. Every news outlet, every music blog, every social media platform. People are going to want to hear your version of the song. They're going to want to know who Jordan Hayes really is." She gripped my hands. "You need to perform Echoes of Tomorrow publicly before you reveal the theft. You need people to hear it from you first, in your voice, so when the story breaks, they can compare. But if I perform it now, Marcus might hear about it. He might suspect. Let him suspect. What's he going to do? Sue you for performing your own song? That would be the final proof you need." Keisha had smiled grimly. "Besides, I have an idea." That idea had become the NPR Tiny Desk concert. Keisha had connections with one of the producers, and she pitched them on me, Jordan Hayes, an incredibly talented singer-songwriter who's been grinding in the LA scene for years. Raw, authentic, the real deal. They'd said yes. The concert would be recorded in 2 weeks, released a week before the Grammys. "It's perfect timing," Keisha had said. "You perform the song, it goes live, and then when Marcus wins the Grammy and you drop your bombshell, people can go back and watch your version. They'll hear the authenticity in your performance that's missing from his polished production." So I'd agreed, and 2 weeks later, I'd walked into NPR's DC office, set up my guitar and keyboard at the tiny desk, and performed Echoes of Tomorrow the way it was meant to be performed, stripped down, vulnerable, honest. The producers had loved it. "This is special," one of them had said after we'd finished filming. "This is going to connect with people." The video had gone live the week before the Grammys. Within days, it had 500,000 views. Then 1 million. The comment section had filled with people saying it was the most beautiful song they'd heard all year, that my voice gave them chills, that they'd never heard of me before but they were instant fans. Some people had noticed the similarity to Marcus's song. "Is this a cover?" One comment had asked. "The melody sounds like Echoes of Tomorrow by Marcus Wright. Original composition," I replied simply. "Glad you enjoyed it." Marcus had called me the day after the video went viral. "What the hell are you doing?" he demanded, skipping any greeting. "Performing my music. Same thing I've always done. That song, people are comparing it to mine. They're saying yours sounds better. Is that a problem?" "Jordan, we talked about this. You can't just what, Marcus? Can't perform songs I wrote? Songs I copyrighted? Songs that belong to me?" Silence. "Then you copyrighted it? Months before I showed it to you. Funny how that works." More silence. I could practically hear him calculating, reassessing, realizing that maybe I wasn't as powerless as he'd thought. "What do you want?" he'd asked finally. "Right now." "Nothing. I'm just sharing my music with the world. Isn't that what we both want? To share our art?" "Jordan, I have to go, Marcus. I have a session to get to. Congrats again on the Grammy nominations. I'm sure it's everything you dreamed of." I'd hung up before he could respond, my heart pounding but my hand steady. The message was clear. I knew what he'd done. I had proof, and I was done being quiet about it. But I still hadn't gone public with the accusation. Not yet, because the Grammys were in 3 days, and I wanted to give Marcus exactly what he wanted most before I took it all away. The night before the Grammys, I met with Veronica in her office. We prepared everything. The copyright registration, the audio analysis reports, the timeline of events, the voice memo I'd sent Marcus that matched my recorded version perfectly. This is airtight, Veronica said, reviewing the documents spread across her conference table. When you're ready to go public with this, his label won't be able to defend him. They'll drop him so fast his head will spin. Tomorrow night, I said. After the ceremony. After he wins or loses, it doesn't matter which. I'm going to post everything. You sure you don't want to give him one more chance to settle? Even now, you could negotiate. No. I was firm. He had chances. He had the chance to credit me when he first took the song. He had the chance to come clean when I confronted him. He had the chance to do the right thing at any point in the last 6 months. He chose not to. So now he gets what he chose. Public exposure. Veronica nodded. Then let's make sure your statement is perfect. We spent the next 2 hours crafting the social media post that would change everything. It had to be factual, unemotional, and bulletproof. It had to tell my story without sounding vindictive. It had to present evidence without seeming litigious. I'm Jordan Hayes, a singer-songwriter based in Los Angeles, the statement began. 6 months ago, my cousin Marcus Wright released a song called Echoes of Tomorrow. That song was written by me, copyrighted by me, and shared with Marcus in confidence as a family member I trusted. I have documentation proving this. Copyright registration dated weeks before I shared it with him, voice memos, text messages, and audio analysis confirming that his version is derivative of mine. I'm not sharing this to hurt Marcus, but because artists deserve credit for their work. Theft in the music industry is too common, and family relationships shouldn't protect thieves. Here's my story. The post would include screenshots of everything, the copyright certificate, the text messages, the audio waveforms, showing the similarities. It would be undeniable, overwhelming, damning. What about his fans? Veronica asked. They're going to attack you. They're going to say you're lying, you're jealous. You're trying to destroy him. Let them, I said. The evidence speaks for itself. And honestly, I think more people will believe me than you expect. Everyone knows someone who's been stolen from. Everyone's had their ideas taken, their work credited to someone else, their trust betrayed. This story is going to resonate because it's not just about me and Marcus. It's about every artist who's been silenced. I left Veronica's office around midnight and drove home through Los Angeles' empty streets. The city looked different at this hour, quieter, more honest somehow. The billboards advertising Marcus's album glowed against the dark sky, his face larger than life, smiling down at the streets where I'd struggled while he'd profited from my work. By tomorrow night, those billboards would tell a different story. I got home and couldn't sleep, so I did what I always did when my mind wouldn't quiet. I played music. I sat at my keyboard with headphones on and worked through a new song I'd been writing, one that had nothing to do with Marcus or theft or revenge. It was about aftermath, about what comes after you win, after you get justice, after you take back what was stolen, about the strange emptiness of victory and the complicated work of rebuilding. I didn't know if the song was any good, but it felt true, and right now, truth was more valuable than beauty. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Keisha. Can't sleep either? Nope, I typed back. Too wired. Tomorrow's going to be huge. Are you ready? I thought about that. Was I ready? Ready to become the person who destroyed their cousin's career? Ready to be known for the scandal instead of my music? Ready to trade privacy for justice? Yes, I typed. I'm ready. Then get some sleep. You'll want to watch the Grammys with clear eyes. You'll want to remember every detail. She was right. I needed to witness Marcus's moment of glory before I shattered it. I needed to see him at his peak, so I'd know exactly how far he fell. I took half a sleeping pill and finally dozed off around 4. My phone charging on the nightstand, the social media post drafted and ready to send with just one tap. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the world would know my name, even if it was attached to a scandal rather than a song. But at least it would be my name. My story. My truth. Finally told in my own voice. Marcus had stolen my song. But I was about to steal something from him that he could never get back. His reputation. The Grammy started at 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Broadcast live from the Crypto.com arena. I watched from my apartment with Keisha. Both of us sitting on my worn couch with takeout Thai food we were too nervous to eat. Marcus was up for 3 awards. But the big one, the one everyone was watching for, was Song of the Year. Echoes of Tomorrow against 4 other incredible songs, all of them worthy, none of them stolen. How are you feeling? Keisha asked during a commercial break. Numb, I admitted. Like I'm watching this happen to someone else. That's probably healthy. Disassociation as a coping mechanism. Thanks, Dr. Phil. She laughed, but it sounded forced. We were both tense, waiting for the moment that would justify everything I'd sacrificed over the past 6 months. Marcus appeared on screen for his first nominated category, Best New Artist. He was sitting in the audience, wearing a custom suit that probably cost more than my rent, looking confident and comfortable. The camera kept cutting to him, showing his reactions to other winners, his smile when fellow nominees hugged him during commercial breaks. He didn't win Best New Artist. The award went to an indie folk singer from Montana who cried through her entire acceptance speech. Marcus applauded graciously, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. Even through the TV screen, even across the distance and betrayal between us, I could read him. We'd grown up together. I knew his tells. One down, Keisha murmured. The ceremony continued. Performances, presentations, emotional speeches. The hours crawled past. Every time they cut to Marcus in the audience, my stomach clenched. Then finally, past hour 3 of the broadcast, they reached Song of the Year. The presenter was an aging rock legend who'd won this same award 30 years ago. He read through the nominees, and when he got to Marcus, the screen showed a montage. Marcus performing Echoes of Tomorrow on various stages, fans singing along. Marcus in the studio with headphones on looking artistically tortured. This song became an anthem, the presenter said. A voice for a generation searching for hope. Let's listen. They played a clip of the song. My melody, my words, Marcus's voice. I'd heard it hundreds of times in the past 6 months, and it never stopped feeling like a knife between my ribs. Keisha grabbed my hand and squeezed. The presenter opened the envelope, paused for dramatic effect, smiled, and the Grammy goes to Echoes of Tomorrow, Marcus Wright. The arena erupted. The camera found Marcus, who stood with his hands over his mouth, eyes wide with shock that looked genuine but probably wasn't. His girlfriend hugged him. His manager hugged him. The artist sitting nearby reached out to shake his hand as he made his way to the stage. He bounded up the steps, accepted the golden gramophone statue from the presenter, and stepped up to the microphone. The applause died down. Millions of people around the world waited to hear what he'd say. Wow, he started, his voice thick with emotion. I can't believe this is real. I've dreamed about this moment since I was a kid in Detroit, teaching myself piano on a keyboard my mom bought at a pawn shop. I felt Keisha's hand tighten around mine. This song, Marcus continued, holding up the Grammy, came from a really dark place. I was broke, I was struggling, I was questioning whether I should even keep doing music. And then one night I couldn't sleep, and I just started playing, and this melody came out. It felt like it was coming from somewhere else, you know? Like the universe was speaking through me. Unbelievable, Keisha whispered. I want to thank my label, Apex Music Group, for believing in me. My manager Terry for never giving up. My family. He paused, and for just a second, his eyes flickered with something that might have been guilt. My family for always supporting me, even when times were hard. And everyone who connected with this song, who made it mean something bigger than me, thank you. This is for all of us who've ever felt invisible, who've ever felt like tomorrow would never come. This proves it does. Dreams come true. The orchestra played him off. He held the Grammy high as he walked off stage, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Which, in a way, he had. Song of the Year was one of the big 4 Grammy categories. It was a career-defining win. After tonight, Marcus Wright would be a household name, a respected artist. Someone who'd made it to the top of an industry that chewed up and spit out thousands of hopefuls every year. He'd done it with my song. My words about feeling invisible. My melody that came from a place of struggle and hope. My creation that he'd claimed as his universe-sent inspiration. "Jordan," Keisha said softly. "It's time." I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. The post was still there, drafted and ready. I read through it one more time, making sure every word was exactly what I wanted to say. Then I attached the evidence files, the copyright certificate, the screenshots, the audio analysis, the text message where I'd sent Marcus the voice memo with a timestamp months before his creation. My finger hovered over the share button. "Last chance to change your mind," Keisha said, though we both knew I wouldn't. "He just told millions of people that he wrote my song in a moment of divine inspiration," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding my system. "He lied to the world while accepting an award for my work. I'm not changing my mind." I pressed share. The post went live. Instagram first, then Twitter, then Facebook, then TikTok. I tagged Marcus, tagged his label, tagged the Recording Academy, tagged every music journalist and blogger I could think of. Then I put my phone face down on the couch and waited for the world to catch fire. It started slowly. A few likes, a few confused comments from friends asking what I was talking about. Then someone with 50,000 followers retweeted it. Then someone with 500,000. Then the music blogs picked it up. Within 30 minutes, my phone was vibrating so constantly that Keisha finally turned it off. "You can't look yet," she said firmly. "Let it build. Let people digest it. If you start responding now, you'll just get caught up in arguments with his fans. What if no one believes me? Jordan, you have receipts, documentary evidence, a copyright registration from before he claims he wrote it, a voice memo you sent him with a timestamp. They'll believe you. Just give it time." We turned the TV back to the Grammys, watching the rest of the ceremony, while my accusations spread across the internet like wildfire. The ceremony ended around 9 p.m. By 9:15, my phone started ringing even though it was turned off, calls going straight to voicemail, the notifications piling up. Keisha turned it back on at 9:30. The screen immediately flooded with notifications. Thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. Dozens of missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. The music media picked it up, Keisha said, scrolling through Twitter on her own phone. Billboard, Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, they're all covering it. Grammy winner accused of theft by cousin. Did Marcus Wright steal his hit song? Copyright documents suggest Grammy-winning song was plagiarized. What are people saying? Mixed. His fans are defending him, saying you're lying or jealous or trying to steal his moment. But a lot of people are looking at your evidence and saying it's compelling. And a lot of artists are sharing it, saying this is exactly the kind of theft that happens all the time in the industry. My phone buzzed with a call from a number I recognized, Veronica Chun. "Jordan, I don't know what you've started, but it's massive," she said when I answered. "Every media outlet in the country is calling me. Do you want to do interviews?" "Not yet. Let the evidence speak for itself first." "Smart. His label just released a statement, by the way. They're calling your accusations baseless and hurtful and saying they stand behind Marcus completely." "Of course they do. They've invested millions in him. They won't stand behind him long. Not once people really dig into your copyright documentation. Speaking of which, you should probably download everything from social media and save it elsewhere. Posts have a way of disappearing when legal teams get involved." After I hung up with Veronica, I did exactly that, downloaded every piece of evidence, every screenshot, every file. Then I uploaded it all to a cloud server and made copies on 2 different hard drives. Marcus called around 10 p.m. I didn't answer. He called again at 10:15, again at 10:30. Finally, he texted, "We need to talk. Please." I didn't respond. He tried Keisha's phone next. She answered on speaker. "Is Jordan there?" He sounded panicked now, the confidence from his Grammy speech completely gone. "She's here. Can I talk to her? Do you want to talk to him?" Keisha asked me. I thought about it. Thought about all the things I wanted to say to him. All the anger I'd been swallowing for 6 months. All the betrayal that had been rotting inside me like poison. "No," I said. "I don't have anything to say to him." "You heard her," Keisha said into the phone. "Jordan, please. This is getting out of control. People are threatening me. My label is freaking out. We can fix this. We can figure something out. You had 6 months to figure something out," I said, loud enough for him to hear me through the phone. "You chose to lie instead. That's not my problem. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I should have given you credit. You should have written your own song. My voice was ice. You should have not stolen from family. You should have been the person I thought you were instead of the person you actually are. Jordan, congratulations on your Grammy. Marcus, I hope it was worth it." Keisha hung up on him. We stayed up until 3 a.m, watching the story explode across social media. Musicians I'd idolized for years were tweeting about it, talking about their own experiences with theft, praising me for speaking up. Industry executives were being asked to comment. Marcus's label released a second statement, saying they were investigating the allegations thoroughly. The NPR Tiny Desk concert video of me performing Echoes of Tomorrow went from 2 million views to 5 million in the span of a few hours. People were comparing it side by side with Marcus's version, noting the raw emotion in my stripped-down performance versus the polished production of his. "Yours is better," became a common refrain in the comments. How did he steal something this beautiful and make it less? Around midnight, a major music journalist named Alexis Chen tweeted, "I've reviewed all the evidence Jordan Hayes provided. The copyright registration is legitimate and dated April 15th. Marcus Wright's single was released August 3rd. The audio analysis shows 94% similarity in melody and 87% similarity in lyrics. This isn't a case of great minds think alike. This is theft." The tweet got 40,000 likes in an hour. By the time Keisha and I finally went to bed, her crashing in my guest room because she didn't trust me to be alone, #Justice for Jordan was trending nationally. And Marcus had turned off comments on all his social media accounts. I fell asleep sometime after 4 a.m., emotionally exhausted but strangely at peace. I'd done it. I told the truth. And people were listening. I woke up at noon to my phone ringing. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer. "Is this Jordan Hayes?" A woman's voice, professional and brisk. "Yes. This is Simone Williams from Good Morning America. We'd love to have you on the show tomorrow to tell your story. Would you be interested?" I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. "GMA wants to interview me? We think our audience would be very interested in hearing your side of things. This story has really captured people's attention. We'd fly you to New York tonight, put you up in a hotel, and you'd appear live tomorrow morning. I need to call my manager. Of course. Here's my direct line. We'd need to know by 4 p.m. today to arrange travel." After she hung up, I called Keisha, who was already awake in my kitchen making coffee. "GMA wants me," I said, stumbling out of my bedroom. "They want to fly me to New York for an interview." Keisha grinned. "That's the first of many, I guarantee it. Everyone's going to want to talk to you. This is the biggest music industry scandal in years. Should I do it? Absolutely. But we need to be strategic about which interviews you do and what you say. This isn't just about Marcus anymore, this is about your career. Every appearance is a chance to show people who you are as an artist, not just as a victim." We spent the afternoon fielding calls from media outlets. The Today Show, The Ellen DeGeneres Show, NPR's All Things Considered, Rolling Stone, Billboard. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. With Veronica's help, we selected the ones that would give me the most credibility, GMA for mainstream visibility, Rolling Stone for an in-depth written interview, and NPR for their music-focused audience. I also agreed to do a live acoustic performance for Billboard that would stream on their website. "Play Echoes of Tomorrow," Keisha advised. "Let people hear it again in your voice. Remind them why it matters." That evening, I flew to New York, first class, which was a new experience. The airline had upgraded me when they recognized my name from the news. The flight attendant who served me champagne whispered, "I'm rooting for you." What he did was terrible. It was surreal, the sudden visibility. 24 hours ago, I'd been anonymous. Now strangers were taking my side in a family drama that had become national news. I checked into the hotel GMA had booked, far nicer than anywhere I'd stayed before, and tried to sleep, but my mind was racing. Tomorrow morning, I'd be on national television, telling millions of people about the worst betrayal of my life. About how my cousin had looked me in the eye and stolen my work. About how the music industry protected thieves and silenced victims. But also about how I'd fought back. How I'd been patient and strategic. How I'd proven that documentation and truth could triumph over fame and money. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. She and my aunt, Marcus's mother, had been in an uproar since the story broke. The family was divided, some believing me, some thinking I was exaggerating, some wishing I'd handled it privately. I believe you, Mom's text read. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I'm sorry I didn't protect you from this. I typed back, you couldn't have known. None of us thought he'd do this. Your aunt is devastated. She keeps calling me, crying, saying you're destroying his life. He destroyed his own life when he stole from me. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. I know, baby. I know. Just be careful. This attention can be overwhelming. She was right about that. I turned off my phone and stared at the ceiling of my fancy hotel room, trying to process everything that had happened in the past 36 hours. This time yesterday, I'd been watching Marcus accept a Grammy for my song. Now I was in New York, about to go on national television to expose him. The reversal was dizzying, and somewhere in my chest, beneath the satisfaction and the vindication and the righteous anger, there was still a small knot of grief. Because Marcus and I had been close once. We'd been kids with shared dreams. We'd been family in the truest sense, not just blood, but chosen. We'd supported each other through the brutal, early years of trying to make it in music. And he'd thrown all of that away for a hit song. I fell asleep thinking about the Marcus I'd grown up with, the cousin who'd taught me my first guitar chords, the friend who believed I'd make it someday. Wondering when he'd become someone who could steal from me without conscience. Wondering if he'd always been that person, and I'd just been too trusting to see it. The GMA interview happened at 7:30 a.m. in their Times Square studio. I sat across from the host, a warm woman named Rebecca who immediately put me at ease. Thank you for being here, Jordan, she said as we got mic'd up before going live. I know this must be incredibly difficult. It is. But it's also necessary. We're going to let you tell your story in your own words. Just be honest and speak from the heart. When the cameras went live, Rebecca introduced the segment. The music world is reeling this morning after singer-songwriter Jordan Hayes accused her cousin, Grammy winner Marcus Wright, of stealing her song, Echoes of Tomorrow. Jordan is here with us today to share her story. Jordan, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. Let's start at the beginning. You wrote Echoes of Tomorrow. Can you tell us about that? I took a breath and told the story. About writing the song in March. About copywriting it in April. About playing it for Marcus and trusting him as family. About hearing it on the radio months later and realizing what he'd done. What went through your mind when you first heard his version? Rebecca asked. Disbelief. Then hurt. Then anger. I kept my voice steady, professional. But mostly, I felt invisible. Like my work didn't matter because I wasn't famous. Like he could take it because no one would believe me over him. You confronted him? I did. He denied it at first, then claimed we'd just had similar ideas. Then he said even if there were similarities, I couldn't prove anything and didn't have the resources to fight him. I met Rebecca's eyes. He was wrong about that. You had copyrighted the song. Weeks before I showed it to him. I have the registration, the original voice memo. Text messages where I sent it to him. Everything timestamped and documented. His label has said your accusations are baseless. What do you say to that? I say they should look at the evidence before they defend someone who stole from a family member. I say they're more interested in protecting their investment than in protecting artistic integrity. This has become about more than just your song, hasn't it? Artists across the industry are speaking up about their own experiences with theft. That's the thing that's given me the most hope through all of this, I said, feeling emotion creep into my voice for the first time. So many artists have reached out to share their stories. People who had their work stolen and couldn't prove it, or couldn't afford to fight, or were too scared to speak up because they thought no one would believe them. This happens all the time in music, and it's wrong. If my story helps even one artist protect their work or demand credit they deserve, then everything I've gone through will have been worth it. What do you want to happen now? I prepared for this question with Veronica. I want Marcus to publicly acknowledge that he took my song without permission and without credit. I want my name on the songwriting credits. And I want the music industry to take theft seriously instead of treating it like a normal part of the business. And the Grammy? I smiled slightly. The Grammy was won by my song. Whether Marcus's name stays on it or mine gets added, that's for the Recording Academy to decide. But I know who wrote it. And now, so does everyone else. The interview lasted 10 minutes. When it was over and the cameras cut, Rebecca squeezed my hand. You did great. You came across as credible, sympathetic, and strong. That's exactly what you needed. I flew back to LA that afternoon. By the time I landed, the GMA interview had been viewed millions of times online. The hashtag Justice for Jordan was trending higher, and Marcus's label, Apex Music Group, had released a third statement. In light of the evidence presented by Jordan Hayes, we are suspending our professional relationship with Marcus Wright, pending a thorough investigation. We take allegations of copyright infringement extremely seriously and are committed to protecting the rights of all artists. Keisha picked me up from the airport, grinning. They dropped him. It's not official yet, but that statement is corporate speak for we're cutting ties. That was fast. That's what happens when you have undeniable proof and national media attention. They can't afford to stand by him now. The PR damage would be too severe. My phone was full of messages, but one caught my attention, from Aunt Helena, Marcus's mom. How could you do this to him? It read, he made a mistake, but you've ruined his life. He's family, Jordan. Family forgives. I stared at the message, feeling that familiar guilt try to take hold. The lifetime of conditioning that told me to be nice, be understanding, don't make waves, protect the family. Then I thought about Marcus standing on that Grammy stage, accepting an award for my work, lying about divine inspiration while I sat in my apartment watching. I typed back. He stopped being family when he stole from me and lied about it. I didn't ruin his life. His choices did. I blocked her number before she could respond. The Rolling Stone interview happened a week later, conducted by a senior writer named Jackson Park who'd been covering the music industry for 20 years. We met at a cafe in Silver Lake, ironically, just a few blocks from Marcus's apartment. I've been following your story closely, Jackson said after we'd ordered coffee. I have to say, the documentation you provided is some of the most thorough I've ever seen in a copyright dispute. Most artists can't prove theft this definitively. I got lucky. A friend advised me to copyright everything, and I did it on a whim. If I hadn't, this would be my word against his. And we both know who people would believe. The famous cousin with the label backing versus the unknown, struggling artist. Exactly. Jackson pulled out his recorder. Mind if we make this official? For the next 2 hours, we talked. Not just about the theft, but about my life as a musician. My childhood in Detroit. Learning music alongside Marcus. Moving to LA with dreams of making it. The years of struggle, the session work, the coffee shop gigs. The moment I wrote Echoes of Tomorrow and knew it was special. What was the song about for you? Jackson asked. Marcus said it was about hope and change. But I'm curious what it meant to its actual creator. It was about becoming, I said. About that terrifying moment when you realize you have to let go of who you've been to become, who you need to be. About standing at the threshold of change and not knowing if you're brave enough to walk through. The echoes of tomorrow are the future versions of ourselves calling us forward, even when we're scared. That's beautiful and deeply personal. It was, which is why hearing him claim it as his was so painful. He didn't just steal my intellectual property, he stole a piece of my story and claimed it as his own. You waited 6 months to go public. Why? I'd known this question was coming. Timing. If I'd exposed him when he was just starting out, it would have been handled quietly, settled behind closed doors, forgotten quickly. But if I waited until he'd built his entire career on my song, until millions of people had connected with it and he'd won a Grammy for it, then exposing him wouldn't just be about getting credit. It would be about showing the industry that theft has consequences, even when the thief is successful. Some people have called that calculated, even cruel. Some people think women should be nice and forgiving, even when men steal from them and lie about it. I met his eyes. I'm not interested in being nice. I'm interested in being treated fairly. Jackson smiled. That's going to be a great pull quote. We talked about the aftermath, the media attention, the support from other artists, the hate I was getting from Marcus's fans who thought I was lying or jealous. How do you handle the people who still don't believe you? Jackson asked. I don't. The evidence speaks for itself. People who choose not to believe documented proof aren't interested in truth. They're interested in protecting their parasocial relationship with a celebrity they admire. I can't fix that. What about Marcus? Have you spoken to him since this all came out? No. And I don't plan to. There's nothing he can say that would change what he did. Not even an apology. An apology now would just be damage control. If he was actually sorry, he would have apologized when I first confronted him, or any time in the 6 months since. He's not sorry he stole from me. He's sorry he got caught. The Rolling Stone piece ran the following week with the headline, "The Theft That Rocked the Music Industry, Jordan Hayes on Being Stolen from by Family." It was a long-form piece that laid out the entire timeline with meticulous detail, including audio analysis from independent experts confirming the similarities between my version and Marcus's. The article's conclusion was damning. The evidence is overwhelming. Marcus Wright built his career on a foundation of theft, and the music industry's initial rush to defend him reveals how often similar crimes go unpunished. Jordan Hayes' courage in speaking up has sparked a long-overdue conversation about copyright protection and the power dynamics that allow established artists to exploit emerging ones. By the time the article published, Marcus had gone dark. His social media accounts were deleted. His publicist had stopped returning calls. Even his manager had released a statement saying they parted ways professionally. Apex Music Group officially dropped him, removing all his music from their distribution channels. The Grammy committee announced they were reviewing the eligibility of his win in light of a copyright dispute. Marcus Wright, who'd stood on that stage accepting a Grammy just 2 weeks ago, had been erased from the industry almost overnight. And I felt complicated about it. The hate mail started around the same time as the support, for every artist who reached out to thank me for speaking up. There was a Marcus fan who called me a liar, a clout chaser, a bitter nobody trying to tear down someone successful. Some of it was vicious. Death threats, rape threats. People found my address and posted it online. I had to temporarily move in with Keisha for safety after someone left a dead rat on my doorstep with a note that said snitch. This is the part they don't show in movies, Keisha said one night as we scrolled through the hundreds of hateful messages flooding my Instagram. The part where doing the right thing makes you a target. I knew it would be bad. I just didn't realize how bad. Welcome to being a woman who challenged a man's success. The internet is not kind to us. But there was support too. Major artists started following me on social media and sharing my Tiny Desk concert. A producer I'd idolized for years sent me a DM. I had my work stolen early in my career and didn't have the guts to fight back. Thank you for being braver than I was. Taylor Swift, who'd famously fought for ownership of her own masters, tweeted, "Artists deserve credit for their work. Full stop. Support creators who speak up about theft." That tweet alone brought me 2 million new followers overnight. And then the job offers started coming in. Labels wanted to sign me. Producers wanted to work with me. Venues wanted to book me for shows. Everyone who'd ignored me when I was just another struggling artist suddenly wanted a piece of me now that I was famous, or infamous, depending on who you asked. It's opportunistic, Keisha warned. A lot of these offers are just people trying to capitalize on your moment. We need to be selective. With Veronica's help, we sorted through the offers, looking for ones that aligned with my actual goals versus ones that just wanted to exploit my sudden notoriety. I ended up signing with an independent label called Resonance Records, a small but respected company that specialized in singer-songwriters. They offered me creative control, fair royalty splits, and most importantly, they understood that I wasn't interested in being famous. I was interested in making music on my own terms. "We want to help you build a sustainable career," the label head, a woman named Patricia Owens, told me during our first meeting. "Not just ride the wave of the scandal and then drop you when the attention fades." "That's all I've ever wanted," I said. "Just a chance to share my music with people who'll actually listen." We started planning my debut album. I had enough songs for a full record, years of writing that had never had a home. Echoes of Tomorrow would be the lead single obviously. But this time it would be released the way it was meant to be. My voice, my production choices, my vision. We'll release it 6 months from now, Patricia suggested. Give the media storm time to die down a bit. Let people separate Jordan the artist from Jordan the scandal. That works for me. I need time to breathe anyway. But breathing was harder than I'd anticipated. The attention was constant, overwhelming, inescapable. Everywhere I went, people recognized me. Some were supportive, others were hostile. All of them wanted a piece of my story. I did a handful of live performances, small venues where I could control the environment. The show sold out instantly, full of people who wanted to hear me sing, but also full of people who just wanted to say they'd been there. That they'd witnessed the artist at the center of the industry's biggest scandal. How do I know who's here for the music versus the drama? I asked Keisha before one show. You don't. But does it matter? They're here. They're listening. That's more than you had before. She was right. But it felt hollow somehow. I'd wanted people to care about my music. And they did, but only because of what Marcus had done to me. I was known for being a victim who fought back. Not for being a talented artist who deserved to be heard. The dichotomy was exhausting. 2 months after the Grammys, I received an unexpected call from the Recording Academy. MS. Hayes, this is Gerald Turner from the Academy. We've completed our review of the Echoes of Tomorrow copyright dispute. My heart started pounding. And, based on the evidence you provided, the copyright registration predating Mr. Wright's claimed creation date, the documented exchange where you shared the work with him, and the audio analysis confirming substantial similarity, we've determined that the song's Grammy win is invalid. What does that mean? It means we're rescinding Marcus Wright's Grammy for Song of the Year. The award will be reevaluated, and we'll be reaching out to you to discuss amending the official credits to reflect your authorship. I sat down, suddenly dizzy. You're taking his Grammy away? The Grammy was awarded to a song. That song was written by you, not Mr. Wright. Therefore, the award should have been yours. We're prepared to issue a corrected Grammy with your name on it, if you'll accept it. If I'd accept it, the Grammy I'd watched Marcus win, that I'd seen him hold up on that stage while he lied about divine inspiration, they were offering to give it to me. Yes, I said. Yes. I'll accept it. We'll need to schedule a ceremony. Given the unusual circumstances, we'd like to make a statement with this. Would you be willing to accept the Grammy at next year's ceremony? We'd feature you performing Echoes of Tomorrow and present the award during the broadcast. You want to make this public? Ms. Hayes, what happened to you resonated with thousands of artists. Your story has already changed how the industry thinks about copyright protection and artist advocacy. We'd like to be part of amplifying that message. But only if you're comfortable with it. I thought about it. Thought about walking onto that stage, accepting an award that had been stolen from me, performing my song the way it was meant to be heard. Thought about the closure of it, the poetry of it. Thought about Marcus watching from wherever he'd disappeared to, seeing me claim what had always been mine. I'll do it, I said. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment for a long time, processing. The Grammy I'd fantasized about winning for years. That I'd watched my cousin accept while pretending to be fine. I was actually going to receive it. It didn't feel the way I'd imagined it would. It felt less like victory and more like vindication. Less like joy and more like justice. But maybe that was enough. I called Keisha to tell her the news. She screamed, so loudly I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Jordan, this is incredible. This is everything. I know. I can't believe it's real. What did Marcus take from you is now officially yours. The Recording Academy acknowledged their mistake. You won. I won, I repeated, trying to make it feel true. So why don't I feel happier? Because winning isn't the same as healing, Keisha said gently. You got justice, which is huge. But justice doesn't erase what he did to you, or how it felt, or the months you spent suffering in silence. Then what do I do now? Now you make your album. You perform at the Grammys. You build the career you always wanted. And eventually, when enough time has passed, you figure out how to be Jordan Hayes the artist instead of Jordan Hayes the victim. How long does that take? However long it takes. There's no timeline for healing. The news about the Grammy rescission broke the next day. The headlines were savage. Grammy stripped from thief Marcus Wright. Recording Academy, Awards Grammy to true writer Jordan Hayes. Marcus writes Fall from Grace complete. The internet exploded again. But this time the tide had fully turned. Even Marcus's most devoted fans couldn't defend him anymore. The Recording Academy's decision was an official confirmation of what I'd been saying all along. He stole my song, and he got caught. I received a message from Aunt Helena. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed my son. I almost didn't respond. But something in me needed to say it. Needed her to understand. I didn't destroy Marcus. I typed back. He destroyed himself when he chose theft over integrity. I just made sure everyone knew about it. She didn't respond. My mom called that night. How are you holding up? I'm okay. Tired. Overwhelmed. I'm proud of you, Jordan. I know this has been hell, but you did the right thing. Did I? Sometimes I wonder if I should have just let it go. He'd still have his career. The family wouldn't be torn apart, and I'd still be unknown, but at least I'd have peace. Honey, that wouldn't have been peace. That would have been surrender. There's a difference. She was right, of course, but surrender seemed appealing sometimes. Easier than being the center of a scandal that wouldn't die. Easier than rebuilding a career from the ashes of someone else's deception. When does it get easier? I asked. When you stop measuring your worth by his failure and start measuring it by your own success. He's gone now. The story's over. Now it's time to write a new one. Marcus finally broke his silence 3 months after the Grammy was rescinded. He posted a statement on a newly created Instagram account. His first public words since disappearing. I want to apologize to Jordan Hayes, the statement read. I made a terrible mistake in not crediting her for Echoes of Tomorrow. The song was inspired by our conversation and the melody she shared with me, and I should have acknowledged that from the beginning. I let success cloud my judgment, and I hurt someone I care about. I'm sorry to Jordan, to my fans, and to everyone I disappointed. I'm taking time away from music to work on myself and figure out how to be better. I read it 3 times, looking for sincerity and finding only self-preservation. The words were right, but the timing was calculated. He'd waited until after the Grammy was officially transferred to me, until after his label had dropped him, until after the damage was done. This wasn't an apology. It was a press release. Inspired by our conversation, Keisha scoffed when I showed her. He didn't take inspiration, he took the whole damn song. And he only admits it now that he has nothing left to lose. Should I respond? Why? What would you say that you haven't already said? He apologized because his publicist told him to, not because he's actually sorry. Don't give him more attention. So I didn't respond. I didn't acknowledge his apology, or accept it or reject it. I just let it sit there, one more piece of the story that was finally, hopefully, coming to an end. Instead, I focused on my album. I spent the summer in the studio with Resonance Records, working with producers who actually listened to my vision instead of trying to mold me into someone marketable. We recorded Echoes of Tomorrow the way I'd always imagined it. Sparse piano, my voice front and center, no overproduction or radio-friendly polish. Just the song, naked and honest. We recorded 11 other songs, each one a piece of my story. Songs about struggle and hope, about being overlooked and finding your voice. About betrayal and recovery. Songs that had been written in my tiny apartment over the past 5 years, waiting for someone to hear them. The album was called After the Echo, and we planned to release it a month before the Grammys. So the song I'd perform would be part of a larger body of work. So people would see me as more than just the artist whose cousin stole from her. Patricia listened to the finished album in the studio, tears streaming down her face. This is special, Jordan. This is the kind of album people remember. You're not just saying that because you signed me. I'm saying it because it's true. You've turned your pain into something beautiful. That's what great art does. I hope she was right. I hoped people would connect with the music, not just the story behind it. I hoped I could step out of Marcus's shadow and into my own light. The album released in January, almost a full year after Marcus had won the Grammy with my stolen song. The reviews were overwhelmingly positive. Hayes has crafted a stunning debut that proves she's far more than the victim of a high-profile theft, Pitchfork wrote. These songs showcase an artist with genuine talent and emotional depth. After the Echo is a triumph. Rolling Stone called it a masterclass in vulnerable songwriting. Hayes bears her soul across 12 tracks, creating an intimate portrait of resilience. But the best review came from an unexpected source, a tweet from Taylor Swift. Listen to After the Echo 3 times today. At Jordan Hayes Music is the real deal. This is what happens when an artist gets the chance they deserve. Can't wait to see her at the Grammys. The tweet sent my album to #1 on iTunes overnight. It hit the Billboard 200 at #4, the highest debut for a singer-songwriter album in years. Suddenly, I wasn't just the artist whose cousin stole from her. I was the artist whose debut album was critically acclaimed and commercially successful. I was becoming what I'd always dreamed of being, known for my music, not my trauma. The Grammys approached with surreal inevitability. I'd been nominated for Best New Artist and Best Singer-Songwriter Album. Echoes of Tomorrow was nominated for Song of the Year again, this time with my name on it. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The same award Marcus had won with my stolen song was up for grabs again, and I was the one competing for it. How do you feel about possibly winning the Grammy Marcus stole? A reporter asked me during a pre-Grammy interview. I feel like the Grammy was always mine, I said simply. Whether the Academy gives me a second one or not doesn't change that. But privately, I desperately wanted to win. Not because I needed validation. I'd already gotten that when they rescinded Marcus's award, but because I wanted the closure. I wanted to stand on that stage and perform my song and accept an award for it while the whole world watched. I wanted to reclaim that moment Marcus had stolen from me. The night before the ceremony, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my hotel room, staring at the ceiling, trying to imagine tomorrow, walking the red carpet, answering questions, sitting in the audience waiting to hear my name called or not called. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, "Good luck tomorrow. You deserve it." And Marcus. Somehow, he got my new number. I stared at the message, feeling a complex tangle of emotions I couldn't name. I didn't respond, but I also didn't block the number. Around 3 a.m., I got up and pulled out my guitar. I sat on the hotel room floor and played Echoes of Tomorrow quietly, singing under my breath so I wouldn't disturb neighboring rooms. This song had changed my life. It had been stolen, fought for, reclaimed. It had made Marcus famous and brought him down. It had introduced me to millions of people and sparked a conversation about copyright protection that was changing industry practices. And tomorrow, I'd perform it at the Grammys. Not as a victim, not as someone fighting for credit, just as an artist sharing a song she wrote. That's all I'd ever wanted. To share my music with people who'd listen. Everything else, the scandal, the Grammy, the album success, that was all extra. Important, yes. Meaningful, yes. But not the point. The point was the music. It always had been. The Grammy ceremony was a blur of anxiety and surrealism. I walked the red carpet in a simple black dress, answered questions from reporters about how it felt to be back after last year's controversy, and tried to seem calm despite my pounding heart. Inside the venue, I was seated near the front, surrounded by artists I'd idolized for years. Some of them leaned over to introduce themselves and wish me luck. Taylor Swift hugged me during a commercial break. "I'm rooting for you," she whispered. "You've earned this." My performance was scheduled for the second hour of the broadcast. I'd rehearsed it 100 times, but as I stood backstage waiting for my cue, my hands were shaking. Keisha found me in the wings. "You're going to be brilliant. Just remember, this is your song. Yours. No one can take that from you ever again." The lights dimmed. The announcer's voice filled the arena, performing her Grammy-nominated song Echoes of Tomorrow. Please welcome Jordan Hayes. I walked onto that stage, the same stage where Marcus had accepted his Grammy a year ago and sat at the piano. The spotlight was blinding, but beyond it, I could sense the thousands of people watching. In the arena, on television, online. I put my hands on the keys and began to play. The song poured out of me. Every note exactly as I'd written it that night in my apartment when I'd been broke and struggling and desperately hoping this might be the one that changed everything. The one that made people pay attention. I sang about tomorrow arriving like a stranger, about echoes of the future calling us forward, about becoming someone brave enough to answer. I sang it with my whole heart, and for those 4 minutes, nothing else existed. Not Marcus, not the theft, not the scandal, or the revenge, or the vindication. Just the music, just the message. Just the truth I'd poured into these lyrics when I'd written them. When the final chord faded, the arena erupted. People were on their feet, applauding, and I could see tears on faces in the front rows. I stood from the piano and bowed, overwhelmed by the response. As I walked off stage, my phone was already buzzing in my dressing room with messages from friends and industry people. "That was transcendent," one producer texted. "You just gave the performance of the night," another wrote. But the message that made me cry was from my mom. "Your grandmother would be so proud." "I'm so proud. You were magnificent." The Song of the Year category was announced in the final hour of the broadcast. By that point, I was emotionally drained, barely able to process what was happening. The presenter was an iconic singer-songwriter in her 60s, someone I'd grown up listening to. She read through the nominees, and when she got to my name, the camera found me in the audience. I tried to smile naturally, but I could feel my composure cracking. She opened the envelope, paused, smiled, and the Grammy goes to Echoes of Tomorrow, Jordan Hayes. The arena exploded again. Keisha, sitting beside me, grabbed my hand and squeezed so hard it hurt. I stood on shaking legs and made my way to the stage, accepting hugs from artists I passed. I climbed the steps, the same steps Marcus had climbed, and accepted the Grammy from the presenter. "Make it count," she whispered to me before stepping back. I looked out at the audience, at the cameras, at the millions of people watching around the world. And I thought about everything that had led to this moment, the betrayal, the pain, the decision to fight back, the months of waiting and planning and suffering in silence. A year ago, I sat in my apartment and watched someone else accept this award for my song. I began, my voice steady despite the emotion choking me. I watched someone I loved and trusted claim my work as his own. And I had a choice. I could stay silent and let it happen, or I could speak up and risk everything. I paused, feeling the weight of the Grammy in my hands. I chose to speak up, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted truth, because artists deserve credit for their work, because theft shouldn't be rewarded just because the thief is more famous than the victim, because staying silent felt like dying, and speaking up felt like breathing. The audience was completely quiet now, hanging on every word. This Grammy represents more than just a song to me. It represents every artist who's had their work stolen and couldn't prove it. Every creator who's been silenced by power imbalances. Every person who's had to choose between peace and justice and chose justice, even though it was harder. I held up the Grammy, feeling its solid weight, its reality. To everyone who supported me through this, my manager Keisha, my lawyer Veronica, my label Resonance Records, my family, the artists who shared their own stories of theft, and everyone who believed me when it would have been easier to doubt. Thank you. This Grammy is for all of us who refuse to stay silent. The orchestra started playing me off, but I had one more thing to say. And to anyone watching who's thinking about stealing someone else's work, don't. Because eventually, the truth comes out. And when it does, you won't just lose the thing you stole, you'll lose everything. I walked off stage to thunderous applause, clutching my Grammy, crying openly now that the cameras couldn't see me. Keisha found me in the wings and pulled me into a fierce hug. "You did it. You actually did it. We did it," I corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." So what happens now? I looked down at the Grammy in my hands, the award I'd fought for, the vindication I'd waited a year to receive. Now I make more music, I said. Now I live my life. Now I let this be the ending instead of the whole story. The aftermath of the Grammys was different this time. The attention was still intense, but it felt less invasive. People were interested in my music now, not just my trauma. I was invited to perform at festivals, collaborate with other artists, write songs for films. After the Echo went platinum, my tour sold out across North America and Europe. I was nominated for more awards, won some of them, lost others. But each accolade felt earned now, built on my actual work instead of riding the wave of scandal. I bought a house, not a mansion, just a modest 3-bedroom in Eagle Rock with a studio space where I could write and record. It had good light and room for a garden. It felt like home in a way my apartment never had. Marcus tried to reach out a few more times over the following months. Texts that I read but didn't answer. A handwritten letter that arrived at my label's office, forwarded to me by Patricia. I know you have no reason to forgive me, the letter read. I don't forgive myself. I let ambition turn me into someone I'm ashamed of. Someone who hurt the people he loved for a shot at fame that didn't even make me happy. I'm working with a therapist now, trying to understand why I did it, trying to become someone better. I'm not asking for forgiveness or reconciliation. I just want you to know that I see now what I took from you, and I'm sorry. You deserve better. From me, from the industry, from everyone. I hope you're happy, Jordan. I hope you're making the music you were always meant to make. I kept the letter in a drawer in my studio. I didn't respond to it, but I also didn't throw it away. Maybe someday I'd be ready to forgive him. Maybe I wouldn't. Either way was okay. What mattered was that I told my truth, fought my fight, and won my battle. What Marcus did with his regret was his business, not mine. 6 months after the Grammys, I was working on my second album when I got a call from Veronica. I have news, she said. Apex Music Group reached a settlement agreement. They're paying you restitution for all the royalties Marcus earned from Echoes of Tomorrow. How much? She named a figure that made me sit down. It was life-changing money. Enough to pay off my house, invest in my career, never worry about rent again. They want this done quietly, Veronica continued. No press release, no public acknowledgement. They're essentially paying you to go away. And if I don't accept, we could sue for more, but it would take years, and there are no guarantees. This is a good settlement, Jordan. Fair, considering what they put you through. I thought about it. Thought about fighting longer, making them admit publicly what they'd done. But I was tired of fighting. I'd gotten my Grammy back. I'd built a successful career. The industry had changed its practices because of my story. Maybe it was enough. I'll take the settlement, I said. Let's be done with this. The money arrived a month later. I put half in savings, invested a quarter in Resonance Records to help them sign more emerging artists, and donated the rest to a fund I'd created, the Songwriters Protection Initiative, which provided legal support for artists fighting copyright theft. You're really never going to stop fighting for artists, are you? Keisha said when I told her about the fund. Someone has to. The industry protects labels and managers and established stars. Someone needs to protect the creators. Well, you're officially not broke anymore. How does it feel? I thought about it. A year and a half ago, I'd been scraping by, unknown and struggling. Now I had money, recognition, respect. I'd won the Grammy, gotten the settlement, built the career. It feels good, I admitted. But not as good as I thought it would. The success is nice, but it's not what matters most. Then what does matter? The music. Always the music. Everything else is just noise. My second album, Standing Ovation, came out 18 months after the Grammy ceremony. It was different from After the Echo, less about pain and more about growth. Less about betrayal and more about boundaries, less about fighting and more about thriving. The lead single was called Not Your Stepping Stone, and it was about refusing to let people use you for their own advancement. It wasn't specifically about Marcus, by now. I was tired of writing about Marcus, but it resonated with anyone who'd ever been taken advantage of. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. I performed on Saturday Night Live and The Tonight Show. I won a Grammy for Best Pop Vocal Album. I was nominated for Album of the Year but didn't win. And I was genuinely okay with it, because somewhere along the way, I'd stopped needing external validation. The awards were nice, but they didn't define me anymore. My worth wasn't measured in trophies or chart positions or critical acclaim. My worth was measured in knowing I'd stood up for myself. In knowing I'd turned my pain into art that helped others. In knowing I'd changed an industry that needed changing. That was worth more than any Grammy. I ran into Marcus, finally, at a songwriting conference 2 years after the scandal. I was there as a keynote speaker, talking about copyright protection and artist advocacy. He was in the audience. I saw him during the Q&A session, sitting in the back row, wearing a baseball cap and glasses like he was trying to be invisible. When our eyes met, he looked away quickly. After my talk, as I was leaving the venue, he approached me in the parking lot. "Jordan," he said, his voice uncertain. "Can we talk? Just for a minute." I stopped, considering. I could walk away. I had every right to. But curiosity won out. "1 minute," I said. "I'm sorry," he started, and I held up a hand. "You've apologized already." Multiple times. I don't need another apology. Then what do you need? I thought about it. What did I need from him? Nothing, I realized. I don't need anything from you, Marcus. I used to need your acknowledgement, your credit, your respect. But I don't anymore. I built everything I have without you. You're not part of my story anymore. I know I destroyed our relationship, you did. And that's on you, not me. I didn't destroy it by speaking up. You destroyed it by stealing from me. He nodded, looking down at his feet. Are you happy? The question surprised me. Yes, I said. And meant it. I'm happy. Are you? I'm trying to be. I'm writing again, but no one will touch my music now. No label will sign me. I'm basically blacklisted. Part of me felt satisfaction at that, but a larger part of me just felt tired. That's the consequence of your choice, I said. You can't steal someone's work, get caught, and expect the industry to welcome you back. Trust takes years to build and seconds to destroy. I know. He looked up, meeting my eyes. For what it's worth, your Grammy performance was incredible. The song was always better in your voice. I know, I said simply. We stood there in the parking lot for a moment, two cousins who'd once shared dreams and now shared only history. I hope you figure your life out, I said finally. I hope you learn from this and become someone better. But I hope it's somewhere far away from me. I understand. He paused. Thank you for talking to me. I know you didn't have to. I didn't do it for you. I did it for closure. For myself. I walked to my car, got in, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I could see him standing there, watching me leave. Small and alone and diminished. I felt something I hadn't expected, pity. He'd won a Grammy with my stolen song and lost everything that mattered. His career, his reputation, his family relationships, his self-respect. And what did he have to show for it? Nothing but regret and a revoked award. Meanwhile, I'd lost a Grammy temporarily, but gained a career, a voice, and a sense of my own worth that no one could take from me. In the end, I'd won more than just my song back. I'd won myself. 3 years after the initial betrayal, I performed at the Grammy ceremony again, not as a nominee this time, but as an established artist invited to perform during the In Memoriam segment. I sang a stripped-down version of Echoes of Tomorrow, honoring musicians who'd passed away that year. It was poignant, coming full circle like this. The song that had been stolen, fought for, and reclaimed was now being used to honor others. It had transcended the scandal and become what I'd always hoped it would be, meaningful to people beyond just me. After the performance, as I walked off stage, a young woman approached me. She was maybe 22, wearing an usher uniform. Miss Hayes, she said nervously, I'm sorry to bother you, but I wanted to thank you. Thank me for what? For speaking up about your song being stolen. I'm a songwriter too. And last year someone I was working with tried to take credit for a song I wrote. But I remembered your story, and I'd copyrighted my work first. And I was able to prove it was mine. I got my name on the credits because you showed me it was possible to fight back. I felt tears prick my eyes. What's your name? Aisha. Aisha Thompson. What's the song called? Brave Enough. It's on an EP that just came out. It probably won't be a hit or anything, but at least it has my name on it. That matters, I said firmly. Your name matters. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. She hugged me, this stranger whose life I'd apparently changed without knowing it, and hurried back to her post before her supervisor noticed she was gone. I stood there in the corridor, thinking about all the other Aishas out there, all the songwriters who'd heard my story and learned to protect their work, all the artists who'd spoken up about their own experiences with theft because I'd made it safer to do so. The Recording Academy had even created new protocols because of what happened to me, clearer copyright verification processes, better protections for songwriters, stricter penalties for documented theft. The industry wasn't perfect, it never would be, but it was better. And I'd been part of making it better. That night, I went home to my house in Eagle Rock and sat in my studio, surrounded by instruments and notebooks and the physical evidence of a creative life. I pulled out my phone and recorded a voice memo like I'd done hundreds of times before. But this time, instead of a song, I just spoke. Note to self, I said into the phone. Remember this feeling. Remember that justice is possible. Remember that your voice matters. Remember that stealing your song was the worst thing Marcus ever did to you, and the best thing too, because it forced you to fight for yourself. Remember that you're not a victim. You're a survivor. And more than that, you're a creator. Never forget which one matters most. I saved the memo and titled it Remember This. Then I picked up my guitar and started working on a new song. Not about Marcus or theft or revenge. About a woman who'd fought a battle and won, and now had to figure out what to do with peace. The melody came easily, like it had been waiting for me to be ready to hear it. 5 years after Marcus stole my song, I was invited to speak at Berklee College of Music's commencement ceremony. Me, the kid from Detroit who'd never been able to afford music school, giving advice to graduates who'd just earned their degrees. I stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of young faces, thinking about what I wished someone had told me when I was their age, fresh-faced and naive about the industry I was about to enter. I'm going to tell you something your professors might not have, I began. The music industry will try to take advantage of you. It will undervalue your work, underestimate your intelligence, and undermine your confidence. It will offer you unfair contracts and inadequate compensation and tell you to be grateful for the opportunity. And some of you will accept it because you're scared or desperate or because you think this is just how it works. I paused, making eye contact with students in the front row. Don't accept it. Don't let fear make you complicit in your own exploitation. Copyright everything. Read every contract. Ask questions. Demand fair treatment. And if someone steals from you, even if it's someone you love, especially if it's someone you love, speak up. Document everything and speak up. I told them my story then, not dwelling on the painful parts but emphasizing the strategic ones. The copyright registration. The evidence collection. The timing. The patience. I didn't get justice because I got angry, I said. I got justice because I got smart. Anger fades, but documentation lasts forever. The line got a laugh, which made me smile. Here's the truth they don't tell you in music school. Talent isn't enough. Hard work isn't enough. Even luck isn't enough. You need all of those things, yes, but you also need something else. The courage to value yourself when no one else does. The strength to fight for your work when people tell you to let it go. The wisdom to know that peace achieved through surrender isn't peace at all, it's just quiet suffering. I gripped the podium, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. 5 years ago, I had a choice. I could let my cousin steal my song and stay silent to keep the peace. Or I could blow up my family and my life to tell the truth. I chose truth. And yes, it was painful. Yes, I lost relationships that mattered to me. Yes, there were times I wondered if it was worth it. I held up my Grammy. I'd brought it as a prop. But I got this. And more importantly, I got myself back. I got my voice, my agency, my power. I learned that I could survive betrayal and come out stronger. I learned that justice is possible if you're willing to fight for it. I learned that the only approval I really need is my own. I set the Grammy down on the podium. So here's my advice as you go out into the industry. Be talented. Be hardworking. Be lucky if you can. But most importantly, be brave. Brave enough to know your worth. Brave enough to demand what you deserve. Brave enough to walk away from opportunities that require you to diminish yourself. And brave enough to fight back when someone tries to take what's yours. The applause started slowly, then built to something thunderous. Students stood, some of them crying. And I felt that familiar swell of emotion, the knowledge that my story mattered beyond just me. After the ceremony, dozens of students approached me with their own stories. Songs that had been stolen. Ideas that had been claimed by collaborators. Experiences that had made them question whether speaking up was worth the risk. It's worth it, I told each one of them. It's always worth it. Your work matters. Your voice matters. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I flew back to LA that evening and went straight to the studio, where I was working on my third album. This one was about legacy, what we leave behind, what we build, what endures after we're gone. The lead single was called My Name on It, and it was about ownership in all its forms. Owning your work, your choices, your mistakes, your victories. This is my life with my name on it, the chorus went. These are my words, my music, my truth. You can steal my song, but you can't steal my voice. I'm done asking permission to exist. It was the most defiant song I'd ever written. and also the most joyful. Because defiance, I'd learned, wasn't just about fighting against something. It was about fighting for something, for yourself. For your right to exist loudly, for your claim to the space you occupy in the world. 7 years after the betrayal, I received a letter from Marcus. Not a text, not an email, an actual handwritten letter delivered to my label's office. I almost didn't open it. I'd moved on, built a life that didn't include him, healed as much as I was going to heal. Did I really need to read whatever he had to say now? But curiosity won, like it always did. Dear Jordan, the letter began. I'm writing this from Detroit. I moved back last year after realizing LA held nothing for me anymore. I'm working at a music store, teaching piano to kids, living a small life. It's not the life I dreamed of, but it's honest. Which is more than I could say about the life I had before. I'm writing because I've finally worked through enough therapy to understand what I did to you. Not just the theft, though that was terrible enough, but the betrayal of trust. You shared your art with me as family, as someone you thought would protect it. And I weaponized that vulnerability. I made you feel like your trust was the problem, instead of my theft being the problem. I gaslit you and dismissed you and tried to make you doubt your own reality. I was wrong. Not just ethically wrong, but factually wrong. The song was yours. The success should have been yours. The Grammy was always yours. I was a thief, pure and simple. And I dressed up my theft in family loyalty and creative coincidence because I didn't want to admit what I was. You don't owe me forgiveness. I'm not writing this to ask for it. I'm writing because you deserve to know that I see, finally, what I did. And I'm sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Sorry I did it in the first place. Sorry I hurt you. Sorry I betrayed you. Sorry I made you fight a battle you shouldn't have had to fight. I hope you're happy. I hope you're making music that fulfills you. I hope you've built the life you always wanted. You earned it. You deserve it all along. I'm including something with this letter, the Grammy they sent me. The one they rescinded after you proved I stole your song. I kept it hidden in a closet for years. Too ashamed to display it, but too attached to throw it away. But it was never mine, and keeping it feels like continuing the lie. It belongs to you. It always did. I won't contact you again after this. You've made it clear you don't want me in your life, and I respect that. This is goodbye, I guess. Goodbye, and I'm sorry, and thank you for teaching me, through your courage, what integrity actually looks like. Marcus, I stared at the letter for a long time. Then looked at the small package that had come with it. Inside was the Grammy, the first one. The one with Marcus's name engraved on it that the Recording Academy had officially revoked. He kept it all these years, and now he was giving it back. I called Keisha. Marcus sent me his Grammy. His, wait, the one they took back? Yeah. He said it was never his, and he wanted me to have it. What are you going to do with it? I looked at the 2 Grammys sitting on my desk now, the corrected one with my name, and the original one with his. 2 trophies telling the same story from different angles. I'm going to donate it, I decided, to the Songwriters Protection Initiative. They can auction it or display it or whatever they want. It's a reminder of what can happen when artists don't protect their work, and what can happen when they fight back. That's perfect, Keisha said, turning his theft into education. That's all I've ever tried to do. Turn pain into purpose. I never wrote Marcus back. I'd said everything I needed to say years ago, and his apology, while appreciated, didn't change the past. But I also didn't throw away his letter. I kept it in the same drawer as all his others, evidence of his journey, just like my music was evidence of mine. The 3rd album, my name on it, came out later that year to critical acclaim. It won Album of the Year at the Grammys, my 2nd Grammy of the Big 4 categories. When I accepted it, I gave a short speech about persistence and self-worth, about fighting for yourself even when it's easier to surrender. Someone once told me that speaking up would ruin my life. I said, holding the Grammy. They were wrong. Speaking up saved my life. It gave me a career. Yes, but more importantly, it gave me back my self-respect. And that's worth more than any award. The camera panned across the audience, and for just a second, I wondered if Marcus was watching from Detroit. If he saw me accept an award for an album about owning your truth and felt the weight of what he'd lost. But then I stopped wondering. Because it didn't matter anymore. His story was his to carry. Mine was mine to live. And I was living it fully now, making music I loved, collaborating with artists I respected, using my platform to help others protect their work. I turned the worst betrayal of my life into the catalyst for becoming who I was always meant to be. Not Marcus's victim. Not the artist who got stolen from. Just Jordan Hayes, singer-songwriter, Grammy winner, advocate for artists' rights, and owner of her own voice. 10 years after Marcus stole my song, I performed Echoes of Tomorrow at the Kennedy Center Honors. I'd been invited to honor a legendary songwriter who'd influenced my work, and I'd chosen to sing the song that had changed my life. Before the performance, a young journalist interviewed me backstage. "You've performed this song hundreds of times now," she said. "Does it still mean something to you? Or has it become just another part of your set list?" I thought about the question carefully. Every time I sing it, I remember who I was when I wrote it. A struggling artist who was terrified and hopeful in equal measure. Someone who didn't know if her dreams would ever come true, but who kept creating anyway because she had to. And who are you now? Someone who knows that dreams do come true, but not always in the way you expect. Someone who learned that the biggest victories often come from the hardest battles. Someone who's grateful for the pain, believe it or not, because it taught me what I was capable of. Do you ever wish it hadn't happened? That Marcus hadn't stolen your song? Sometimes, I admitted. I wonder what my career would look like if I just had normal success without the scandal. If I'd slowly built an audience instead of exploding onto the scene as the artist whose cousin stole from her. But I don't think I'd be who I am. Now without it. The theft broke something in me, yes, but it also forged something stronger. It taught me to value myself even when others don't. To fight for what's mine. To use my voice not just in my music but in my life. The performance that night was one of my best. I sang Echoes of Tomorrow with a decade of experience behind it, a decade of growth and healing in perspective. The song was still about becoming. But now I understood that becoming never stops. We're always standing at the threshold of change, always hearing echoes of tomorrow calling us forward. The difference was that now, I was brave enough to answer. After the Kennedy Center performance, I was approached by a documentary filmmaker who wanted to make a film about my story. Not just about the theft and the legal battle, but about the music industry's broader problems with copyright protection and artist exploitation. "Your story opened doors," the filmmaker said. "It made people pay attention to issues they've been ignoring. I want to document that, the ripple effect of one artist refusing to stay silent." I agreed to participate, and over the next year, we filmed interviews with other artists who'd experienced theft, lawyers who specialized in copyright law, industry executives who were finally taking these issues seriously. We showed how the rules had changed since my case, how more artists were copyrighting their work and standing up for themselves. The documentary premiered at Sundance and was picked up by a major streaming service. Echoes, the Jordan Hayes story, became one of the most watched music documentaries of the year, sparking renewed conversations about artist protection and industry reform. "You've become the face of a movement," Keisha said after the documentary won an Emmy. "How does that feel?" "Weird," I admitted. "I didn't set out to be anyone's hero. I just wanted credit for my song. And instead you changed an entire industry. I didn't do it alone. Every artist who spoke up, every lawyer who fought these cases, every fan who demanded accountability, they all changed it too. I was just the match that lit the fire. That's still something to be proud of." She was right. I was proud, not just of my music or my awards or my success, but of what I'd built from the ashes of betrayal. The Songwriters Protection Initiative had helped dozens of artists fight copyright theft. Industry protocols had changed. More young musicians were protecting their work and demanding fair treatment. My pain had become something larger than myself, and that felt like the truest form of healing. 15 years after the betrayal, I released my 6th album, Full Circle. The title track was about forgiveness, not the kind where you reconcile with the person who hurt you, but the kind where you release the hurt itself and reclaim the energy you've been spending on anger. I'm not saying what he did was okay, I told an interviewer promoting the album. I'm saying I'm done letting it define me. I got my song back. I built my career. I changed the industry. That's enough. I don't need to carry rage around anymore. Does that mean you've forgiven Marcus? It means I've forgiven myself for trusting him. I've forgiven myself for not protecting my work better initially. I've forgiven myself for the relationships I lost when I chose to speak up. That's the forgiveness that matters. The album was my most mature work yet. Meditative, contemplative, honest about complexity rather than seeking simple answers. Critics called it a masterclass in emotional intelligence and the work of an artist fully in command of her voice. It didn't sell as well as my earlier albums. It didn't spawn any massive hits. But it felt the most true to who I'd become, someone who'd learned that life wasn't about winning or losing, but about becoming someone you could respect. I played smaller venues on that tour by choice. Intimate theaters instead of arenas. I wanted to be close to the audience, to see their faces, to hear them breathe between songs. Fame had been useful for amplifying my message, but it had never been the point. The point was always the music, the connection, the shared moment of recognition when a lyric hits someone exactly where they need to be hit. At a show in Detroit, my first time performing there since the scandal, I saw an older woman in the front row who looked familiar. It took me a moment to place her, Aunt Helena, Marcus's mother. I almost stopped singing, almost asked security to remove her, but she wasn't causing a scene. She was just sitting there, tears streaming down her face, listening. After the show, she waited by the stage door. When she saw me, she didn't approach, just held up a hand in greeting and mouthed thank you. I nodded back. It wasn't reconciliation, exactly, but it was acknowledgement. She'd lost her son to his own choices, just like I'd lost a cousin to his. We were both casualties of the same disaster. I didn't invite her backstage, didn't exchange numbers, or promise to stay in touch. Some wounds, even when they heal, leave scars that make certain relationships impossible to rebuild. But I also didn't hold anger toward her anymore. She'd done what mothers do, defended her child, even when he was wrong. I couldn't fault her for that, even if I also couldn't forgive the way she'd blamed me for his downfall. We were all just doing the best we could with what we knew. That had to be enough. 20 years after Marcus stole my song, I was teaching a master class at Berkeley, the same school where I'd given that commencement speech years ago. Now I was a guest professor, teaching a semester-long course on music industry practices and artist protection. One of my students, a talented singer-songwriter named Maya, stayed after class one day. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. "Sure. Do you ever regret how you handled the Marcus situation? I mean, I know you won, but you also lost your family relationship, became famous for something traumatic, had your privacy invaded. Was it worth it?" I'd been asked variations of this question hundreds of times over the years. But this time, from this earnest young woman who reminded me of myself at her age, I really thought about it. "Here's the thing about regret," I said finally. "I can only regret choices I made. I can't regret Marcus's choice to steal from me. That was his to make and his to regret. So the only choice I could regret is speaking up about it." "And do you regret speaking up?" "No. Because the alternative was living the rest of my life knowing I'd let someone steal my voice and said nothing. That would have killed something in me. My self-respect, my integrity, maybe my ability to make music at all." I gestured around the classroom, at the equipment and instruments. The walls covered with posters of musicians who'd changed the world. I could have had peace if I'd stayed quiet, but I would have paid for that peace with my soul. And that price was too high. Maya nodded slowly. "I think someone I've been collaborating with is trying to take credit for work I did. I've been telling myself it's not a big deal, that I should just let it go to keep the relationship. Is the work copyrighted in your name? Not yet. Then do that first. Today. Right now. Before this class ends. Then you'll have proof, whatever happens next. And then you decide what you're willing to live with. Can you live with being uncredited? Can you live with this person profiting from your work? Can you live with yourself if you don't speak up? I don't know. Then you're not ready to decide yet. But protect your work first. So when you are ready, you'll have the ammunition you need." She thanked me and left, and I hoped she'd take my advice. Hoped she wouldn't have to learn the lessons I'd learned the hard way. That evening, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was just "thank you." Inside was a message from Marcus. "I know I said I wouldn't contact you again, but I saw that you're teaching at Berkeley this semester, and I wanted to reach out. Not to ask for anything or defend myself or try to rebuild a relationship I know is gone forever. Just to say thank you. Thank you for refusing to let what I did to you become just another industry story that gets swept under the rug. Thank you for using your platform to protect other artists. Thank you for turning your pain into purpose instead of just letting it make you bitter. I've spent the last 20 years trying to atone for what I did, teaching music to kids, helping young artists understand copyright and contracts, volunteering with organizations that protect creators' rights. It doesn't undo what I did to you, but it's something. It's my way of trying to balance the scales. I'm not the same person who stole your song. Therapy and time and consequences changed me, but I also know that doesn't matter to you and it shouldn't. You don't owe me redemption or forgiveness or even acknowledgement. I just wanted you to know that the work you've done, the industry changes, the fund you created, the artists you've protected, it matters. You took the worst thing I ever did and made it mean something beyond just us. That takes a kind of courage and grace I'll never possess. I hope you're happy, Jordan. I hope teaching brings you joy. I hope the next 20 years are everything you deserve. Marcus, I read the email 3 times, feeling a complex mixture of emotions I couldn't fully name. After 20 years, his apologies felt less like manipulation and more like genuine remorse. But that didn't change the past. It didn't undo the betrayal, or the pain, or the years I'd spent fighting for what was mine. I drafted a response. Marcus, I appreciate your email. I'm glad you've found ways to make amends through your work with young artists. That matters. But I need you to understand that your growth doesn't require my participation. I've healed from what you did, but that healing doesn't include reconciliation. I wish you well in your life and your work. But I also need you to respect that we can't be part of each other's lives moving forward. Jordan, I hovered over the send button for a long time before finally pressing it. Then I blocked his email address and deleted the conversation. It wasn't cruelty. It was boundary setting. I could wish him well and still refuse to let him back into my life. Both things could be true. That night, I called Keisha, still my manager after all these years, still my friend, still the person who'd stood by me through everything. Marcus emailed me, I said. What did he want? To thank me, apparently. To tell me he's changed. And I told him I'm glad he's changed, but we still can't have a relationship. Then I blocked him. How do you feel? Good, actually. Lighter. Like I finally closed a door that's been ajar for 20 years. I paused. Is it wrong that I don't hate him anymore? No. Hate takes energy. You've spent that energy building something beautiful instead. She was right. Over the past 20 years, I'd released 6 albums, won multiple Grammys, sold millions of records, toured the world, taught hundreds of students, helped countless artists protect their work. I'd built a legacy that had nothing to do with Marcus and everything to do with my own talent, drive, and refusal to be silenced. The theft that had once defined me was now just a chapter in a much longer story. An important chapter, certainly. A formative one. But not the whole book. I'm thinking about writing a memoir, I said. About all of it. The theft, the fight, the aftermath, the healing. Everything I've learned about the industry and about myself. You should. People need to hear the full story, not just the headlines. Would you read drafts? Tell me when I'm being too bitter, or too generous, or too anything. Always. That's what best friends do. The memoir took 3 years to write. Not because I couldn't find the words, but because I wanted to get it right. I wanted to tell the truth without cruelty, acknowledge my pain without wallowing in it, credit those who'd helped me without diminishing my own role in my survival. I called it my name on it, how I reclaimed my voice and changed an industry. The book came out to strong reviews and even stronger sales. It debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list and stayed there for 18 weeks. People connected with the story. Not just musicians, but anyone who'd ever been stolen from, overlooked, or told to stay quiet for the sake of peace. I did a book tour, 50 cities across the US and Europe. At every event, people lined up to tell me their stories. The employee whose boss took credit for their ideas. The student whose professor stole their research. The friend whose partner claimed their accomplishments. The family member whose inheritance was taken by someone with more power. Your story gave me the courage to speak up, person after person told me. Your story showed me that justice is possible. At a reading in Chicago, a woman in her 60s approached me during the signing. I'm a songwriter, she said. 40 years ago, a famous artist recorded one of my songs and never credited me. Never paid me. I was young and scared and I let it go. Your book made me realize it's not too late to tell the truth. It's never too late, I told her. Do you have proof? I have the original lead sheet. Handwritten and dated. I have letters I sent him asking for credit. I kept everything. Then you have a case. Let me connect you with my lawyer. I gave her Veronica's contact information and watched her walk away with tears in her eyes and hope on her face. These moments, helping other artists find their courage, connecting them with resources, showing them that speaking up was possible, these were the moments that made everything I'd been through worthwhile. During the tour, a reporter asked me if I'd ever spoken to Marcus after everything. Briefly, once, about 2 years ago, we ran into each other at an industry event. It was civil but distant. We're not enemies, but we're not family either. Do you think about him? Less and less as time goes on. He's not a part of my life anymore, and that's by choice. My choice. Some people say you destroyed his career. How do you respond to that? I'd say he destroyed his own career when he stole my work. I just made sure everyone knew about it. There's a difference between destroying someone and exposing who they already are. Do you feel any guilt about how things turned out for him? I thought about that. Did I feel guilt? Marcus had lost his career, his reputation, his family relationships. He'd spent 2 decades teaching piano to kids instead of performing in arenas. His name was synonymous with theft and shame. No, I said finally. I feel sadness about what could have been if he'd made different choices. But I don't feel guilt about the consequences of his actions. He knew what he was doing when he stole from me. He chose immediate success over integrity. That's on him, not me. The interview went viral, with people debating whether I was too harsh or not harsh enough. But I'd learned over the years that you couldn't please everyone. Some people would always think I should have stayed quiet. Others thought I hadn't gone far enough in my response. The only opinion that mattered was my own. And I knew I'd done the right thing. 25 years after Marcus stole my song, I stood on the stage at the Kennedy Center, receiving the Kennedy Center honors for my lifetime contributions to music and artist advocacy. I was 53 years old, gray starting to thread through my hair, lines around my eyes from decades of smiling and crying and living fully. The tribute performance featured artists I'd mentored over the years, each singing one of my songs. When they performed Echoes of Tomorrow, I cried, not from pain this time, but from the beauty of seeing something I'd created a quarter century ago still resonating with new generations. In my acceptance speech, I talked about the journey, about being a struggling artist who wrote a song in desperation and hope, about having that song stolen by someone I trusted, about the choice to fight back instead of staying silent. That choice changed my life, I said, looking out at the audience full of artists, politicians, industry leaders. Not because it made me famous, though it did. Not because it won me awards, though it did that too. But because it taught me the most important lesson of my life. Your voice is your power, and no one can take it from you unless you let them. I paused, gathering my thoughts. When Marcus stole my song, he thought he was stealing my career, my chance at success, my future. What he didn't understand was that he couldn't steal the thing that mattered most, my ability to create, to write, to sing, to share my truth with the world. That was always mine, and it always would be, regardless of what he took. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. So to every artist watching this, whether you're just starting out or you've been at this for decades, remember, your work is yours. Your voice is yours. Your story is yours. Protect them fiercely, share them bravely, and never let anyone convince you that staying silent is the price of peace. Real peace comes from standing up for yourself, not from surrendering to those who would diminish you. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. As I stood there, holding my Kennedy Center medallion, I thought about 25-year-old Jordan, sitting in her apartment, playing a song for her cousin, trusting him with her art. I wished I could tell her what was coming. The betrayal, yes, but also the fight, the victory, the career, the life she'd build from the ashes of that trust. But maybe she needed to not know. Maybe she needed to experience the pain, so she could become someone strong enough to survive it. After the ceremony, I stood in the receiving line, accepting congratulations from people who'd shaped American culture. A young woman approached, maybe 25, about the same age I'd been when Marcus stole my song. "Ms. Hayes, I'm Aisha Thompson. We met years ago at the Grammys, when I was an usher. I told you about how your story helped me protect my work." "I remember," I said, though honestly the memory was hazy after so many similar conversations. "I wanted you to know, that song I fought for, Brave Enough, it became the title track of my first album. And that album just got nominated for a Grammy." "Aisha, that's incredible. I wouldn't have had the courage to speak up if you hadn't shown me it was possible. You saved my career before it even started." "Thank you." She moved on, and I felt that familiar swell of pride. Not pride in my own success, but pride in what that success had enabled. The artists I'd helped. The industry I'd changed. The legacy that would outlast me. That night, back in my hotel room, I sat by the window looking out at Washington, D.C. lit up against the dark sky. My phone buzzed with congratulations from friends, family, colleagues. But one message stood out. It was from an unknown number. I watched the ceremony. "You were magnificent. You've become everything you deserve to be. I'm proud of you, even though I have no right to be." And Marcus, still watching after all these years, still reaching out occasionally, like a ghost that couldn't quite let go. I almost deleted it without responding, like I'd done dozens of times before. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the Kennedy Center honors, making me reflective. Maybe it was knowing I'd reached the pinnacle of my career and could afford to be generous. Maybe it was just exhaustion with holding boundaries that no longer felt necessary. I typed back, "Thank you. I hope you're well." It was the first time in 25 years I'd responded to his messages. I didn't know if I'd regret it, but it felt right in the moment. Not reconciliation. I'd never trust him again, never let him back into my life. But acknowledgement that we'd both grown, both changed. Both moved beyond the people we'd been when he'd stolen from me. His response came immediately, like he'd been waiting by his phone. "I am teaching still. Living quietly. Proud of the small good I can do. Thank you for responding. I won't bother you again." "Okay," I typed back. "Take care of yourself." And that was it. 25 years of anger and hurt and complicated feelings, distilled down to those final exchanges. It wasn't closure. I'd found that years ago. It was just completion. The final period at the end of a very long sentence. I turned off my phone and looked back out at the city lights. Tomorrow I'd fly home to LA. Back to my students at Berkeley. Back to my studio where I was working on my 7th album. Back to the life I'd built note by note, word by word, choice by choice. The life Marcus's theft had inadvertently given me the courage to claim. I'd started as Jordan Hayes, struggling artist. Became Jordan Hayes, victim of theft. Then Jordan Hayes, fighter for justice. Then Jordan Hayes, Grammy winner. Then Jordan Hayes, industry advocate. And now, finally, I was just Jordan Hayes, artist. Full stop. Complete unto myself. My name was on my work. My voice was my own. My story was mine to tell. And in the end, that was worth more than any Grammy, any honor, any accolade. That was everything. I'm writing this from my studio in LA, 30 years after Marcus stole my song. I'm 58 now, still making music, still teaching, still fighting for artists' rights when needed but no longer defined by that fight. Echoes of Tomorrow is taught in music classes as an example of melodic composition. It's been covered by hundreds of artists. It's in a movie, a commercial, a Broadway show. It's had a life far beyond the scandal that made it famous. And when people sing it, they know my name. They know I wrote it. They know the story. Yes, but more importantly, they know the song itself. Its message about becoming, about courage, about answering tomorrow's call even when you're afraid. The Songwriters Protection Initiative I founded has helped over 500 artists protect their work and fight theft. The industry protocols that changed because of my case are now standard practice. Young musicians copyright their work as automatically as they save their files. My legacy isn't just my music. It's the culture shift I helped create, the precedent I set, the permission I gave other artists to speak up. Marcus never returned to music professionally. He's still in Detroit, still teaching, still making small amends through small actions. We don't talk, but I see his name occasionally, an article about his free piano lessons for underprivileged kids, a mention in someone else's story about learning from mistakes. He'll always be known as the cousin who stole from Jordan Hayes. That's his legacy, just as mine is being the artist who fought back. We both got what we deserved in the end. People ask me sometimes if I'd do it all again, knowing how hard the fight would be, how much it would cost me emotionally and personally. And the answer is always yes. Because the alternative, living my life knowing I'd let someone steal my voice and said nothing, was never really an alternative at all. Speaking up was the only choice that let me keep living as myself. So here's my final advice to anyone reading this who's been stolen from, overlooked, or told to stay quiet. Don't. Speak up. Fight back. Protect your work and your worth and your voice. It won't be easy. It might be the hardest thing you ever do, but it will be worth it. Trust me on that. I'm Jordan Hayes, singer-songwriter, Grammy winner, Kennedy Center honoree, artist advocate, and owner of my own story, and I wouldn't change a thing.